I previously released a video about how a sermon from Hyrum Smith that explicitly condemned polygamy had been deleted from the Joseph Smith Papers website. It turns out that the reasons I was given for why they deleted the sermon are factually incorrect. Let's get into it. When I confirmed that Hyrum's speech had been deleted, I asked the editors why. They said, the Documents Volume 14 print volume editors determined that the meeting on 9 April was an elders' conference, no longer the general conference, 6 to 8 April. Since Joseph Smith didn't participate in the elders' conference, it doesn't count as a Joseph Smith document, so we took that off the website. Bullock's notes for the 9 April meeting are available in the Church History Library's online catalog. So, the logic is, 9 April was an elders' conference. Joseph Smith didn't attend the elders' conference, therefore we removed Hyrum's speech. That sounds reasonable until you double-check the dates and realize that Hyrum's talk was on the afternoon of 8 April, not on 9 April. Now, to be generous, maybe they misspoke and the conference really started on 8 April. After all, it's easy to get the dates confused. I did it too. But in the contemporary accounts, there seems to be no documented change to an elders' conference on 8 April. Let's look at the evidence from each person whose notes of the conference are used in the Joseph Smith Papers. Bullock, whose notes are by far the most extensive, has Hyrum saying the previous day, 7 April, that he wants to talk to the elders before the conference is over. The way that he does this is interesting. Quote, a certain good sister came to my house and had heard so many stories that it troubled her. It was unbelief. I told her she had too much faith. I tell you how may no very thing is true or not. It will trouble you if you believe, and you had better get something to get rid of it. Get humble before God and pray to him to judge it for you. Before this conference closes, I want to get all the elders together. We are going to send out those elders together who know how to preach nothing but the truth. Now that was a little bit rough, but in the manuscript history, Bullock's notes have been rendered into full sentences, and it reads, a certain good sister came to my house, and she was troubled because she heard so many big things. She thought it weakened her faith. I told her she had too much faith. She believed too much. I will tell you how you may know whether the thing is true or not. When any come to you with a lie, you feel troubled. God will trouble you, and will not approbate you in such belief. You had better get some antidote to get rid of it. Humble yourself before God and ask him for his Spirit, and pray to him to judge it for you. It is better not to have so much faith than to have so much as to believe all the lies. Before this conference closes, I want to get all the elders together. To reiterate, Hyrum wants to speak to the elders before the conference is over about all the lies and untruths that have been circulating, and it's clear from his address the next day that the lie and untruth is polygamy. And on the next day, 8 April, Bullock marks the transition to the afternoon on a new page with the words, Hyrum Smith called to order 25 men to 4. He does not say that a separate conference for the elders is starting. Bullock does record Hyrum, at least partially addressing the elders, quote, one reason I speak to the elders is in consequence of the 10,000 reports from abroad. But this does not necessarily mean that it's an elders conference or that only elders were present, as we'll see shortly. William Clayton apparently doesn't record Hyrum's speech at all. At least, it's not in the fragments of his journal that the church lets people see. His notes from the previous talk seem to cut off several minutes before the end. Perhaps he left early to use the bathroom and decided to skip the afternoon session. At this point, it would be easy to make a joke about what Clayton might have been doing during the anti-polygamy lecture with his sister-in-law, whom he recently married as a plural wife. But I'm too classy for that, at least today. Willard Richards was recording the conference in Joseph Smith's official journal. He wrote that after the first session, quote, the elders were notified to meet in 2 hours. Richards next says that a large collection of elders assembled at the stand. Interestingly, Wilford Woodruff's account differs from Bullock and Richards. Woodruff says that President Smith turned over the conference into the hands of the 12 and adjourned until 2 o'clock. Woodruff is the only one to mention Joseph placing the 12 in charge, and Bullock and Richards both say the conference started at 4 p.m., not 2 p.m. However, Woodruff also mentions that Hyrum speaks to the elders, as we shall see. So, it's clear that at least parts of Hyrum's speech were intended for the elders, but that does not mean that this was suddenly an elders' conference, and from the content of Hyrum's speech we can infer that others were present, specifically women. Let's look at the relevant content in the different versions. Bullock's notes are copious. including Hiram talking about the damned fool doctrine of polygamy, and saying specifically that God has not commanded anyone to have more than one wife. Hiram also says, "I give the sisters leave to wring his nose who teach such stuff. I'll bear you out in it. Give him justice." If this is specifically an elders' meeting, why is Hiram talking to the women? You could make the case that he was addressing them in absentia, but there's nothing to suggest that women and unordained men were dismissed, only that the elders were specifically encouraged to attend. Clayton, of course, records nothing. Willard Richards, writing in Joseph's journal, says, "Address by Patriarch Hyrum Smith on spiritual wife system. The first one we heard reporting such stuff, we will report him in the times and seasons, and come and give up his license. He was decided against it in every form, and spoke at length." Little bit of a short shrift compared to Bullock's version. However, Wilford Woodruff is even more brief. President Hyrum Smith arose and spent most of the afternoon in something? I don't know what that word says, I'll be honest. If you can figure that out, let me know in the comments. In something the elders to try to teach them wisdom, that they might act in wisdom when they go out to preach. Now, the Joseph Smith Papers website said that they removed Hiram's speech because 9 April was an elders conference. But as we've seen, Hiram's speech was on 8 April, and although there were a large number of elders there, it does not appear to have been an elders conference, since Hiram also addresses the women in the audience. Maybe they deleted Hiram's talk because Joseph wasn't there for it? But since Willard Richards recorded an account in Joseph's diary, it's very likely that Joseph was there. And Joseph was no stranger to standing up and offering corrections to a speaker. In fact, he said at this conference that he would correct one of the speakers if necessary. One could infer from the lack of corrections that Joseph approved of Hiram's words, especially since Joseph said similar things on other occasions. But maybe it was deleted because it wasn't Joseph speaking. It is the Joseph Smith Papers, after all. Fair enough, but Joseph doesn't start speaking until page 14 of Bullock's notes. About half of the coverage on the conference that's still on the Joseph Smith Papers is not Joseph, including sermons by Signe Rigdon and John Taylor and another speech by Hiram. Only Hiram's speech condemning polygamy has been removed from the record of the 8 April conference. Hiram's speech was copied into the manuscript history of the church that was created in 1855 to 56, and then deleted and replaced with a tame, safe version where Hiram does not mention polygamy at all. Why are the reasons that Joseph Smith paper editors give for deleting Hiram's talk demonstrably untrue? Is it an honest mistake, or is something more sinister afoot? More broadly, if Joseph and Hiram were actively teaching and living polygamy, why did and does the church have to manufacture evidence that implicates them in it, and delete evidence that they opposed it? Let me know what you think in the comments below. I don't have all the answers, but I don't believe the stated reasons from the church. However, I do believe Joseph.